CoSET is called Socio-Ecological Transformation in Nigeria. Our mission is to advocate for sustainable practices, promoting social and environmental justice. And we've had several activities in the past, and in fact, this is also part of our activity. So you'll be hearing a lot of presentations from some of our members.
Some of you, I think, have been at the COP. Some of you have followed the events. And I think it's very important not to just have the eyes open when it comes to climate matters at the time of the COP, but throughout the year, before and after. Now we are at the point after, so it's important to look at what has been discussed, what have been the achievements, what have been the shortcomings, and also discuss it from a perspective where young voices come into play, where civil society come into play, because we must not forget it's not only about finding the solutions, but also about applying them and really making a just transition where workers, where the many can benefit and not just the few. So I'm happy to be here. I will mostly listen to your interesting exchange, and I thank you all for coming.
Funny enough, the conversation around loss and damage gained grounds in Sharm el-Sheikh, and it was also carried forward in Dubai. So that's what we're going to talk about today. From Sharm el-Sheikh to Dubai, what has changed, things that has happened, the improvement.
Look at Africa, look at Nigeria as a country. We are also one of the biggest oil and gas country. How are we tapping into that, our own resources, to even change the economy of the country?
What we're doing today is to look at decisions that have been taken at the COP, the conversations at the COP, everything that has happened at the COP. We're trying to synthesize, kind of bring it down here to apply it locally. So what does the COP mean to Nigeria? What are the resolutions that we take, the agreements that were reached? What does it mean for us? What does it mean for Africa? What does it mean for Nigeria? What does it mean for us locally? So those are things that we're trying to see here. So bringing out CSOs that are also members, fundamental members of the coalition. They are putting together to see how the issues surrounding loss and damage that was agreed upon in Sharm el-Sheikh and further discussed in Dubai, how it affects us locally.
When Doctor was talking about what do we know as climate change, as a COP, for me, it's a conference of polluters where people come together, gather, discuss one issue, and change terminology every year.
And that generally, loss and damage is about what the historical process of climate change, how it has impacted on people and environment in terms of health, in terms of loss of livelihoods, in terms of loss of culture, in terms of loss of, even impact politically. So you can divide it into political impact, socio-economic impact, and cultural impact.
It is African frontline communities that have suffered. And for some of us, we thought that instead of discussing loss and damage, which is actually like the rat biting your leg and blowing you breeze on that leg so that you won't know or you won't feel it why it is biting you until the impact, when it has left. At the time that loss and damage was brought in the UNFCCC discussions on COP, that was at the point that Europe was in dire need of energy from Africa.
For me, I was able to interact with it because I was following it online. And some of the things they sent to our women gender constituency. So whatever they sent, I pushed back. At a point, there was a big pushback when I sent some things and they were like, they can't go on without some of the critical issues I put on the table. So everybody was saying, we're on the last page, until we should leave it. I said, if you like, leave it though, but we'll go to COP28, I will still engage.
But the bottom line is, what is our transition, plan for Nigeria? Because if we continue like this, 12 of those buses cannot take 250 million people. I've not seen the gas station in Lagos that they said, but I've seen the bus. and the bus looks neat every time I see it. It looks as if they don't use it. Yeah, because it's something that we need to start thinking about. Now that we are talking about carbon credit, for me, I still see the conversation of carbon market, carbon credit as a false solution, because it's going to make a lot of companies now to start saying, let us produce more. As long as we are giving them money to do, we are offsetting our carbon, right?
People tend to forget immediately they return from conferences like that, because they're usually quite technical sessions. What we're trying to achieve here is to make sure that the local NGOs that attended COP actually understand those heavy themes, those heavy thematic areas, those languages that were used there. We're trying to get experts. We brought experts who really understand these things, experts who were in the room when these conversations and decisions were reached, to come out and tell us here, when we say issues like loss and damage, what does it mean for the local community in Olobiri? What does it mean for the local communities in the north where mining is taking place? You say loss and damage, what does it mean to us? What does it mean to you? So faith-based organizations are also helping to push these messages across board. So when you have faith-based organizations sitting down alongside civil society organizations and members of government, because members of government are also here, because we also want to know, what are you doing policy-wise? What policies are you formulating? What policies are you pushing? What policies are you trying to put in place to make sure, to ensure that conversations, agreements reached in Dubai, in the COP, are actually kind of trickling down to the people? Because if it doesn't get to the people, then everything is useless.
And so, if you look at our age breakdown, this is what it looks like. We have more people that are young, that are not even working, under 15, highest population. And then we have the older people in this other population. So people that are working, are generating income, are probably less than 30. So that we have a high dependent population. It's either they're old or they're too young to work. You understand? So you understand the impact of that climate change if we are not taking measures on how to take care of it. Next.
And even from our experiences, we all experience loss and damage. And then we're asking how. Basically, there was flood in Nigeria. It was a very severe flood. And the flood affected about 91% of the states in Nigeria, which is basically 33 out of the 36 states. So only 3 states were not affected by flood completely. And in some states, the effect was very severe.
One I think is very paramount for African country is the global stocktake and the loss and damage. And I think one of the biggest conversation there is, how is this reflecting the action, the climate action that we are talking about as a developing country? So how it influences climate action and Nigeria exactly is, how can we try to cascade and implement all these actions in the local communities?
I think it can influence change locally in significant areas. A key one, I would say health, because at COP28 it was the first time that health was added to the COP agenda, and we can see even from the effect of climate change in Nigeria that there are so many diseases plaguing people. Take for instance the effect of climate change, which has led to change in basic weather conditions, like when we have our dry season, wet season, and even the popular Harmattan period has led to the increase in asthmatic patients, and we have more patients with respiratory diseases and infections. So I think it's a very key effect that the outcomes have even here in Nigeria.
When it comes to the question of net zero, I am anti-net zero because there's nothing like net zero. Okay? Net zero is just a coinage by the oil companies to deceive us. You know, big grammar. Okay? Big grammar. Net zero. What does it mean? What is the component? What are the components of net zero? What does it ask people to do? Governments to do? And you see, if we look at the net zero discussion, and as our government, you know, maybe this government might look at it differently, but the previous administration, where the net zero was championed, you know, almost by our vice president, go and check. The most painful part of it is that the crafting of what net zero is was done by young Americans and, Europeans for Nigeria. So how do you think that it will work for us?
If the outcome was a people-oriented outcome, it could have resolved a lot of issues around flooding in the Niger Delta. It could have resolved around a lot of issues around desertification in the north. It would have also attempted to look at issues of other environmental disasters that are happening in different parts of the world. But as it stands now, it's a win-win for the polluters or the multinational companies. It's a win-win for them because they got what they were looking for, and they also had a lot for themselves in terms of the negotiations that went on, and mostly the fact that they have been able to own the space as against what the people want.
Yeah, I feel that the outcome can influence change, locally in the Nigerian context and the Nigerian perspective, because there are so many opportunity, for Africa as a continent, and Nigeria, as a country. And I believe that those outcomes are outcomes that Nigeria can leverage on. One, because Nigeria is strongly dependent on oil. It's an oil producing country and highly reliant on oil for its revenue.
First time in many years, the word fossil fuel, was actually captured in the text as, an acknowledgement that this is a major problem, we have in the world. With concerns with issues like greenhouse gas emission, and the fact that fossil fuel, there's a need for us to shift or reduce the dependence or the production and consumption that is based on fossil fuel. And I think that was a major landmark.
A ban on single-use plastic, that is one important impact. A lot of people didn't even know why we were banning, but now that they've gone outside and they see the kind of menace plastic can cause to the whole environment. So people are taking those steps. You see that the environment has said they are banning single-use plastic in the ministry. And that's the first step. Lagos State has banned single-use plastic and styrofoam. So it's a process. Speaking the word out is one of the first steps, and then working on it to ensure that we get to our desired destination is the second. So we see how we work it out, and I'm sure that was a direct impact from COP.